Should be live in 10 seconds. All right, there we go. We'll just start in a minute or two. Give everyone a minute to log on. And yeah, good evening, everyone. Whoever's already online, we'll just wait maybe a minute or so before we start. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome.
I don't have my cup of coffee like you, but I'm ready.
Yeah.
सुबह जैसे आँख खोली थे आपने सोचा कि चलो चाय वाय का बंदोबस्त करते हैं देखते हैं जैसे आँख खोली इधर भी मुर्दा और मक्खियाँ ऐसी उनके ऊपर कि जैसे कि लेयर ऑफ मक्खियाँ नहीं होती जब तक 80 जिंदा तुसी भी जिंदा हो जब 80 मर गए तो फिर उनकी जिम्मेवारी साड़ी थी
Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to day 3 of Partition 73. We've had 2 wonderful days and I'm really looking forward to tonight's conversation as well. My name is Ragini from Third Culture Cooks and I will be with you for the duration of these days, interviewing 16 wonderful people who have allowed me to bring their stories into this series for us to collect a series of stories to record partition from different perspectives. Last night, we had an absolute whirlwind tour of Hyderabad's history, all the way from the 1500s to present day. And Eunice just did an incredible job of situating us to the diversity of the city and the state around it and all of the forces that were at play at the time of partition. We very commonly hear about the Nizam and his relationship with the British, but what we hear less about is all of the other forces that were working around him that were making his job easier or more difficult, depending on whose side you're on. For the next 3 days, we are now shifting gear to explore partition and the arts. So we are going to explore the visual arts, we are going to explore music art, and we are also going to explore architecture. We start today with the visual arts, and largely for the next 3 days, our focus is going to be North India, and for the 2 days after today, specifically looking at the music of Punjab and the architecture of Punjab. However, we start more with a personal account of art and partition. And if you recall on the first day, we talked about this pull of future generations who didn't live through partition, having this pull towards uncovering it, unpacking it, understanding it, processing it, and it being a sort of intangible thing that we weren't able to necessarily express, but all of us who studied it had this feeling within us, whatever that meant for an individual. My guest today is somebody who I know has a very strong intangible pull to partition, and it has become and expressed itself very beautifully in the most tangible and incredible art project that we are going to discuss tonight. MANISHA GERA BASWANI is a writer, photographer, and artist, painter based out of Gurgaon. Her project, Artist Through the Lens, photographs Pakistani and Indian artists in their lives, in their studios, and has been going on for several years. And it gave rise to this incredible project called Postcards from Home, which we'll talk about today. And I don't want to spoil that for all of you. It's much better that you hear it from her than from me anyway. MANISHA has a personal and professional association with partition, and she was featured at the Kochi Biennale in 2018 and also has had several solo exhibitions in India and Pakistan alike. Before we get to something that I just wanted to share with everyone before we start is I noticed when I first spoke to MANISHA and saw her work, one of the things I noticed is, you know, the similarities across everything we look at. And on the first day, we had this question that, did we have half of something at the end of partition, or did we have a less full whole? What is it that we ended up with? And so I just want to keep that in mind as we move through today's conversation, that are we grappling with half of an identity, or are we still holding on to the older identity and exploring the whole of that, or recreating something that didn't exist at all as a new whole altogether. So with that, Manisha, welcome, and thank you so much for being with me this evening.
Thank you, Ragini, for calling me. Thank you.
It's been, yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. And your work is incredible, and I'm very excited to share it with everyone this evening. And so while I sort of start and bring up some of your work, I was wondering if you could start by giving everyone a bit of background to your journey with art, your start as an artist, and how you came to the point of wanting to record partition through your art.
My parents came from Pakistan. The one thing they were very, very adamant about was that the kids should have a good education, and I think that has helped both my brother and I through the years. They made sure that anything else, if we couldn't afford, but education was something they both wanted us to have. Coming from a Punjabi background where arts is not really given so much preference, unlike in India or in South India or Calcutta, where naturally kids are being given dance lessons and have you what. But my parents recognized that I liked art. So I look back and I really have to thank them, because not many kids in Delhi were sent to art classes. And I was sent by my parents to this very gentle Bengali gentleman. Every evening I would walk to his house, make art and come back. It was when my teachers in school said that you must think of looking it up as a profession. I again need to thank them, because not once did they say, why art? Right. I had many friends whose parents would say, no, you should become something else, but you can pursue art. I was never told no. And on the contrary, I was encouraged, and I managed to get through Jamia Millia Islamia, where I met, you see him on screen, Ramachandran sir, my guru. And that's how my journey with art began. I feel sometimes things are meant for you, they're destined for you. Yeah. I feel I was destined to be an artist. Nobody in my house has any inkling towards the art, but they all, my parents and extended family, helped me when I said, look, I want to take up art. And that's how it happened. That's how my journey began. And it continues. This journey continues.
That's wonderful. And do you want to tell us maybe a little bit? I think we have a few of your older works here.
Yes. When I look at my older works, it's always in retrospect. I'm quite an organic artist. I'm not someone who plans something or has a very, a conscious thought process happening before I start working. I have a blank piece of paper on canvas and I start working. And normally I start looking at my works in hindsight. And now re-looking at my earlier works, I realized they were a lot to do with family, with home, with my brother, the dining table. And now I understand. It's almost like it was an epiphany that I was meant to do something to do with home. And that's an idea which stays with me, and it's growing in my practice. My work is coming to the whole idea of home, whether it's the home which my parents call Pakistan and their childhood home, or what I'm doing now with my work. But that has been the primary concern in my work before marriage, during marriage, and now where I feel, yes, the many roles I play, that of, a mother, a wife, and, a daughter, I feel suddenly I have time to myself. But the idea of home is continuing to take a lot of my heart and practice, yes. And what you're seeing is early works. I did a lot of work with tea water. So this is a work called Kyoto. I went to Japan and I came back and I said, I just love Japan. And I felt how beautiful everything is. They make everything so special, including wrapping your gift, So I came back and this is what I did with tea water. This is a technique which I was taught by my teacher. And as I said, new aspects start coming into your life with time. Things you did earlier, you come back to them after a decade or so. So this is a very early work, but I'm coming back to tea water now. So it's always in retrospect, you see where you were, what you're doing, and the dots start connecting. And sometimes they don't connect, which is okay. But I see a lot of dots connecting, and I see myself coming back to a lot of what I was doing earlier, but it's finding shape in my new body of work.
It's amazing. These are just, I mean, this one is stunning. It's so vibrant. And I love the color red. And
This actually was, there was a medical emergency in our family, a very big medical
emergency.
emergency.
If this is something to do with, with the human body.
It has to do with the internal body. And what is beautiful about us artists is all our pain comes out through work.
Mm-hmm.
So we release ourselves. We don't have to, we can take help outside, but one doesn't feel the need many times because it's coming out through your work. So I did a whole body of work around the internal body organs because that was affected in a family member, and post that a lot happened post that, you know. So all of that came in my work, but when it's a painting, it looks beautiful. And you look at it and you say, wow, yes, there was pain, but I made beauty out of this pain.
Beauty out of it. Yeah, no, absolutely. 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 This is another one.
Again, family, you will see a lot of family members, faces of people in the roses. It's almost like a blossoming garden. And as I said, all of it starts coming rather subconsciously and unconsciously in my work. Mm-hmm. I'm surrounded by, I love being with my family, and that's predominant in my work. This is post the surgery of one of our family members. And you can see the pain here. You know, I was in grief. I was in pain, and I hadn't used black for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And since the body had been stitched together to heal, I thought it was quite fascinating that you have to make dents on the body. You'd have to bring pain to the body for it to be alive again. Look at the irony of it, right? And so this is what it is. I took a black painted piece of paper and I made gashes on it. And this is one such work. And the next one that you're about to see is also that. There is on the left side so much thread and string. What you can't see is I've actually put an acupuncture needle in the middle of these threads. Oh, and yes, and so when the treatment was happening, the acupuncture needle, the whole act of pinning a body to heal the body, right? And not just that, the whole idea of, you know, you need a needle, just a small, teeny, weeny needle to make that thread nice and long and not have the chaos. Yeah. So solutions in our life do not have to be, you know, complicated. They can be very simple. And sometimes you really need that little needle, that inconspicuous needle lying somewhere can shift your life. So on the right are the scars and the gashes, which probably, yes, not probably, but I was going through a lot of mental pain. And on the left is this chaos, which actually this little needle helped me solve. Wow. And later, which is currently, this whole act of acupuncture, pinning with the needle became my recent body of work, which you will see later, because I started using the act of pinning as an act of airing the paper and you know, healing the paper and bringing form. But you'll see them later.
Wow. I mean, just imagery to this is beautiful.
Yeah, so if I could just add a bit here, because you will see my current work, the works I'm doing now later. Yeah. When I was myself going through acupuncture, I realized it's again ironical. You're being pinned, you're being caused pain, and you come out saying, I'm healing, right? It's akin to kintsugi, you know, this whole philosophy of you're broken, but in Japan, and when you are, you know, when you are kind of put together, a broken pot is put together with gold, with liquid gold, the pot becomes precious. And I guess it's not just me, we all, I think we hit midlife and you feel there's so much we've gone through in life. But that going through can be taken to our advantage, can become our golden liquid gold, can become our precious metal which heals us. And this phase which I went through with family, I look back and I say, well, it was meant to be, because I won't be where I am, and nor will my family be if it was not for this time. And it also shifted my work. And the pain one felt through even when I did the partition project. I think it all came together. So I'll talk about it when we discuss the partition project, but I'm giving you a window to this body of work because that's where I think in hindsight, it was all beginning for me.
Starting to set the stage. It's beautiful. I mean, we've been chatting for 15 minutes and you've given us so many beautiful thoughts already, you know, whether it's pain bringing you to where you are today, and had you not gone through that, you wouldn't be where you are, whether it's connecting the dots of life, whether it's one little needle that you need in the chaos to pull it out. I mean, I can't wait to see where we get to next. So in one of your talks, you had this quote, and I wrote this to you as well. I thought it was beautiful, where you said, follow the soft knocks on your heart before your mind says no.
Yeah.
And I actually rewound that and listened to it, I think 2 or 3 times, because I felt like it was just so powerful, because so often we allow the mind to come in and say, you should probably be doing something else.
Right.
And so as we move on to talking about artists through the lens, as you start to give us a bit of a background to that project, can you talk about what these soft knocks were as you...
So I used to photograph and document my guru. I still do, A. Ramachandran, primarily because I see him as a recluse and I feel he has so much to give me and I want to share with the world. So I have been photographing, writing, taking interviews for the last 30 years with him. And obviously, invariably, I would carry the camera with me to do this. So when I look back, I feel the camera became like a Siamese twin. I just became very comfortable with having this piece of my red bag, which is still red after 17 years of doing this project. It's the same bag. And I would carry it. And so I saw myself carrying this camera to my friends' homes and artist friends, So we friends have our little addas, we have our lunches and dinners and even art camps. And I became naturally inclined to just start taking photographs. And talking of the soft knocks, many people said, Manisha, ye kyun kar rahe ho? Why are you photographing artists? You're better off painting. I think you're diluting yourself. And there were very well-meaning people in my life.
Right.
But my heart said, I need to do this. And that's where I think here the soft knocks, because your best of well-wishers, we will think sometimes different from what you want to. So I continued, Ragini. So here I am painting in my studio like 4 days a week and 3 days going to artist studios and photographing them and not knowing what I'll do with it. I had no idea. And this is the body of work, which is now 17 years that I've been photographing artists. I call it Artists Through the Lens. And a lot of artists who would come from Pakistan, I would photograph them. It was not meant to be an India-Pakistan project. They're friends where there's no border.
Right.
But I decided when I had a solo of my paintings in Karachi in 2015, I just decided, I told my friends, just take me to artist studios. So barring 2-3 friends, I didn't know people, but that's what my friends did. I was taken in the morning, I would sit at my show of paintings, and in the evening or afternoon, we would go to artist studios. And that's where the conversations began, because I went to photograph them, but I would hear stories about India. Most of my artist friends, I would say almost 85% had an India connect. Yeah. And that kind of just shifted everything I was planning to do. And which is where I'm saying, that's where I heard the next knock in my heart, that, here I am photographing Pakistani artists, again with no agenda in mind, just photographing friends. And I hear stories of beta hum, like my friends' parents would say, "Are India mein ye tha, hum ye karte the." And I felt it's just akin to what my parents tell us.
Right.
And it's the same joy and smile with which they would talk.
Yeah.
There was no bitterness. That again, I feel very vehemently that in today's world, we are a very bitter generation. I'm generalizing, but I feel here's our generation of our parents, and from both sides of the border. And they've gone through such a difficult time in their life. But there's always a smile, positivity, and which has probably made them what they are, right? So I came back from Pakistan, having heard so many stories, and it's almost like, you get this moment in your head saying, I have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I've talked earlier about it, and I will reiterate, I decided to use WhatsApp as my 6-lane highway. I had no visa to be required, no border to be crossed. I just messaged friends, look, I'm thinking of bringing 47 artists, and the number was in mind because it's 47 years of India's partition. Tell me your stories. So there were artists like Meher Afroz, if you see her, she left for Pakistan as late as 1962.
Oh.
So imagine her story. She said, I was teaching and studying and teaching in Lucknow. And when I was going, my teacher said, Hamare bare theek cheeze bolna. So here's a lady who leaves so late in life to go there because her family was there, you know. Anyway, so Salima ji, you see, is Faiz Ahmed Faiz's daughter. Salima ji said, whatever you need on the other side of the border, we'll help you. Because I had no money, I had no funds. I just had a dream that I have to bring it together. And really, when I went to Pakistan, her house, her sister Muniza ji's house, her driver, her house was like home to me. They did everything to facilitate my meeting the artists, by making appointments. And then, of course, now I feel I can say back, I mean, look back saying I have such wonderful friends, right. But it started with a few lovely well-wishers in my life from the other side of the border. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I decided to send artists, Indian artists who had photographed messages. Right. Do you have a Partition Connect? Because I didn't know which Indian artist had a Pakistan Partition Connect. So I chose Punjabi and Sindhi surname artists I had photographed. So imagine sending a WhatsApp to almost 150, 200 artists I photographed, asking if they have this. And the answers started coming. And my project found shape. And it was then shown at the Lahore Biennale, at the Fez Festival, as at the Kochi Biennale as an invited collateral. These are friends from Pakistan. Yeah. Sabah Iqbal. Now they are friends. I didn't know them when I was meeting them.
You started.
And I did wonder, will I be able to get the intimacy I get with my Indian artists in their studios? Because I know them. So I'm the fly on the wall. But will I be able to get it? I think I did. Yeah. I think it was, there was so much love. There was so much, what do I say? There was so much emotion when I went there. Mm. And I met artists and their friends. Sabah, for one, has a beautiful story about her grandfather having tea in his veranda, and in comes the Indian ambassador's car at his gate with a flag. And he said, like, what is this? He opened the gate, somebody opened the gate, and in came his friend who was from Stephens. And he was the Indian ambassador in Pakistan. Had he refused to meet him or tell him, he just said, I'm going to surprise him.
Yeah. Wow.
But he was reprimanded later. But having said that, imagine a moment like this.
It's the moment
when your grandfather meets his Indian friend, who's now the Indian ambassador. So that's the kind of stories I heard when I decided I have to bring it together.
And did you find that the stories were quite free-flowing when you were opening with, you know, I'm looking to do something around yes. partition? Do you have a connection, or was it
yes. So I think I think my Punjabi is more from that side of the world than from here. I learned it from my grandmother. So okay. When I was there, actually, I just felt very comfortable because that's the food we eat. That's the way we talk Punjabi, which I do sometimes with my parents, but I learned it from my grandparents. So when I was there, I just felt this is an extension of my home here in my grandparents' home. So yes, and I think I need to add that if borders are open, only then you'll realize the love you get on the other side. Absolutely. We don't realize it. And that's where I feel blessed, and that's where I feel the universe helped me. I got visas, I was able to do it. I made friends, and I got so much love. So much so that when I was asked by a few friend journalists if I want to write, and I said, yes, I do want to write. Mm-hmm. Because I think these stories need to be told to people here that yeah. there is so much love. People don't take money from you. Yeah. The gentleman who made Nimbu Pani for me for 5 days when I was showing at the Lahore Biennale came back and said, I didn't know you're from India. Please take this 300 rupees back. I will not take money from my sister. Now, only when you go do you understand there's so much love. And I mentioned earlier that both the times I showed it, there were a lot of moments where people broke down with me. These are strangers, people I don't know. But when they were reading the stories, when they were interacting with me, here's an Indian girl with this flower in her head with a bindi. I did all that. I did all the India number.
Right.
And they would just come and say, give some story, and I would break down and they would break down. Now imagine this level of love you get, which we'll never read about in the papers. And I'm sure they don't read about us. It's both ways. Absolutely. But at a human level, these are the stories which need to come out. And they can come out through culture. Yeah. What you're doing is one such program through music, through culture. That border needs to be opened for people to begin to feel that free love again, you know?
Absolutely. I've often said I didn't grow up in India, and many of my closest friends were Pakistani growing up. Yeah. My best friends to date, or many of them actually. And I've often said that it was only when we came to India in the summer that Pakistan felt really far away. But in our day-to-day lives, it was like they were just like us. And because they were Punjabi as well, there was so much more connection with them that the border was, it was a very seamless integration of, you know, our two homes and families and so on. Yeah.
The irony of being so many miles away and feeling close, and here we are across, literally a drive away, but we can't. Yeah. This is a beautiful image given to me by my friend Rashmi Kalika. It's the movie The Door by the Iranian filmmaker Mohsin Makmalbaf. But it also resonated with the story she told me about her uncle who missed his home in Lahore, and he had reached Punjab, and every day he would dream about it. Mm. So he took his two Gorkha guys with a screwdriver, walked to Lahore, which was obviously not too many miles away, unscrewed the door of his house and brought it back. He still has that door. I saw this and I just felt it's so beautiful. And in her case, that's the story she gave for my project. This is Rashmi Kalika.
That's beautiful. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And so now we come to, you know, you photographed these many artists, but obviously your interest in partition stems from your own history, you know, and your own family's history and the stories you've grown up hearing, and that your parents, you mentioned, still refer to Quetta. Was it from Quetta? Is that where they were from?
Sorry?
Where were they from in Pakistan?
So my father's from Sargodha and my mother's from Quetta.
From Quetta, yeah, and they would still refer to that as home. So can you talk to us a little bit about what?
Yes, so let me just say, I think it's only when I hit the 50 in my life that all of this became so special to me. You know, I never thought so much about it till I went to Pakistan, till I stepped on that soil and something happened to me. And I said, what is this emotion I'm feeling? What am I feeling that, like, literally I remember, you know, coming down the plane. And when I was standing, something happened to me. And I felt, this is my parents' land. Mm. And I think it was all meant to be, Ragini. In hindsight, all the stories started coming alive. And I'll just add, they are with me in the other room as I'm talking to you. They are, you know, and I feel, I note down what they write, they tell me. There's a story every time I speak to them. Right. The stories don't end. My father's 88, my mother's 80. Mm-hmm. Smiling, vibrant, and beautiful stories. So I feel it's all coming back to me in a very beautiful, organic way. I didn't go looking for it. Yeah. But it's coming to me, and it's now becoming part of my work. It wasn't so earlier consciously. Right. But after Postcards from Home, I am doing something else, which is again to do with partition. So the knock on the heart is getting louder and louder. And now I've just opened the door ajar and said, come, do what you want to. Knock, thud, everything works. I am now ready for it, you know.
So just before we get to Postcards from Home, I was wondering, you know, when you went to Pakistan the first time or thereafter, was there any one of your parents' stories that resonated in your mind at a particular moment or overall through the trip? Was there any one story that sort of rung in your ears as you were there?
No, you know, it keeps coming back. Like when I went to a friend's house and her father said the word kanak, you don't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
And my grandparents used to. And I said, wow, that's the word my parents used to use. I went to buy a ticket at the National Museum in Lahore and I said, Kitna hua ji? So he said, Jitna den deo ji, unna de do, whatever is the ticket. So you know that they don't see any difference because the way we are, the way we talk. So at every point of time, things come back. And then you make your own experiences because what you've heard, it resonates with you in a different way when you reach a situation there. So yeah, it's even not just physical presence, you know, Ragini, even when I think now, even when I look back at the few visits I made, there's always something which starts, you know, what is the word? It just starts coming in a very beautiful whisper sometimes. And then it takes me to the next, sometimes a work, sometimes an embroidery, words my father still speaks. I made a list of those words. Those words, you don't hear them.
Right.
Like my mother said, beta, ye aapko project ne khuda ne karwaya hai. This project, God has made you do. That's the word they use. Khuda ne karwaya hai. They don't say Bhagwan ne karaya because that's what they've grown up on.
Yeah.
Now those are very beautiful subconscious ways whereby by sheer osmosis one is just taking it on in. And I feel also very privileged and blessed that I have them for so long, you know, to have my parents and who are able to tell me with vividly what they went through. It's not even something they have obliterated from their mind. Some people just, I know a few artist friends whose parents just said, we can't talk about it.
And revisit that. Yeah.
Right. So, but my parents very beautifully talk about it. So yes, I think I'm living with it nowadays every day. I have a diary where I write notes, you know. I ask them questions. I get some new stories. I got one today from my mother, so I've noted it down.
That's beautiful. And yeah, no, absolutely. We're very blessed to have people with us who can really tell us.
So these are the Indian artists. When I went looking as to who had a connect, some we knew, like Satish Gujral and Krishan Khanna, who met his wife when he was 8 and she was 5. It's very sweet. When I went to interview him, he kept saying, darling, you were wearing that red scarf. And she said, no, it wasn't red. So, I mean, he's 95 and she's 91. And they were talking about that red scarf she wore and how he looked at her when he was 9. So this is the kind of stories you hear. And, you know, anyway, so these are this is a set of few artists who are part of the project. But can I just add that most of them are part of my Artist to the Lens project, meaning the photography project.
Yes.
I just decided to take the artists who also have a connect with Partition and rope them in the Partition project. But this is something I've been doing for a very, very long time.
That's beautiful. And what I'm sure, I mean, it's such an incredible archive that you're creating for.
I didn't start out like that, Ragini. And as I said, the soft knock, I didn't start out, I had no agenda. And it's only later when I heard Rumi said, just walk the path and the answer will appear. I think all this while I've just walked the path and the answer appears. And as a parent to 2 young sons, 21 and 16, I feel this is something I want to do very consciously, not kind of, you know, direct a path for them. Many of us parents are becoming very hard driven to see where the careers of the children go. And I very consciously, with my husband, have decided, let them unfold it themselves. We equip them with the tools, which my parents did for me. Yeah. And let the answers emerge. And one answer does not have to be the final answer. Absolutely. I'm a painter. I can later start writing. I can start taking photographs. I can start sewing. I can be cooking and be on shows where food and partition come together, you know.
Right. No.
The unfolding is beautiful because you're letting the universe find an answer which is best suited for you. Yeah. And that's where I am in my life. And I very strongly believe that follow that heart and things will unfold for you if it's meant for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just such a beautiful organic way to think about our own evolution as well. Awesome. So I think maybe now we'll come to, the project that I'm sure everybody is dying to hear about. So Artists Through the Lens, was a project over several years. And then something happened where you thought there is something more I can do with this, and Postcards from Home was born. And so I was wondering, can you maybe tell us about the project, of course, and maybe just talk a little bit about, beyond the physical reality of India and Pakistan, what does home mean in the context of this project?
So I mentioned that it's when I went to Pakistan is when I started hearing the stories. Right. And the stories were akin to my parents' stories, without bitterness, with only love for the other land. And I wished I could just open like Moses the border and say, guys, let's just all meet, In my own small way, I think I did that through this project. It's 47 artists, 25 from India and 22 from Pakistan, all photographed by me in their studios, which is independent of the project. I was going to photograph them, but I asked them to write what tugs at their heart when they think of the home lost. And that's what they've done. And it's been shown at the Lahore Biennale, where I showed it in sacks of wheat, actually. And why wheat? Because wheat is kanak. Kanak means gold. This is all 47 artists you're seeing from India and Pakistan. And that's the poster which was made for the Lahore Biennale. It is all 47 artists, including me. And so I decided to display it in sacks of wheat simply because I felt wheat is a staple diet of both the Punjabs, roti. And a pair of Indian and a Pakistani card was put in each sack, and the sacks were leaning against each other. It was almost like a dream I had that, imagine if we are all complete in ourselves, golden sacks of wheat and leaning against each other for love and support and to become stronger. How amazing the subcontinent will be. It was like a dream which I was living through this project. And as you can see, this is in Lahore at the Shahi Hammam. People could take all 47 cards back to their home. So the whole idea of home, which is being talked about here, is something they could take 47 cards, pick them up as it walked through this trail of sacks, and in the process touch the wheat. You could touch the Mother Earth, which knows no borders. I mean, the wheat field will not say, oh, I can't grow here because this is India and that's Pakistan, right? Yeah. So nature has no rules, and it's man-made rules. Talking of home, I don't even know what to say. I just feel even now when my parents say, when they talk about their childhood, in Punjabi, they use that word as home. So that home is not about, it doesn't belong to a certain country. Right. It belongs to the place which was surrounded by trees and which had these people, and where they would go and buy, a bhutta or get chaat. And that is the whole idea of home. Right. It is, I think the whole, the border kind of vanishes when they speak about home. And I went looking for a home of a friend's mother. She's 80 plus, and she left it when she was 8. And I was sitting right where I am in this white sari here because the project was taking time to assemble. And I Googled and I said, I think I can find her home. For 4 hours, Ragini, I was looking for her home in the by lanes where I don't think most of my friends from Lahore have gone to those lanes. But I didn't find the home. It was broken, but I found everything else around it, how her son had described to me.
Wow.
And it disappointed me that ghar toot gaya tha. But for her, it's something which she says, I found my home through Manisha. For her, the home was about the Panch Peer ki Kabar, about that Veda, the veranda with the well. And I feel that's when I realized this whole idea of home, which we talk about, is not the 4 walls. Right. It is about all that we surround ourselves to become complete, to be happy. And it takes me to the next step in life, which is independent of the partition project, that are we building our homes in our hearts the way we need to? Do we live a life where, which is not about nostalgia and about worry and about memorabilia? Can we live that life now with that happiness? Will that chai wala next door or that ice cream wala next to you, just interaction with them, are we making that special? Are we making the looking at that flower in our balcony special? So it took me from that space that here's a lady who didn't worry about the fact that she couldn't find her home. And I went after 80 years, I showed her photographs. So that's her last memory. But for her to find that Panch Peer ki kabar, to find that well, was enough. And that's where I feel I am. I mean, I feel at this stage in my life, I feel I want to celebrate everything which is home to me. Yeah. You get me? So that's where I've moved in myself. The project has taught me that, you know, it's taught me something about myself now.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And so people could pick these up. So on one side, it has the photograph of the artist we can see here on the postcard. Yes. And then the other side had their story on it as well.
Yes.
Story?
Yes. There's a story of 400, 500 words about what they remember of the home they lost. And they're beautiful stories. Wow. So I plan to get my website in order soon. So you'll be able to read all those stories because they're really special. Yeah.
In the interim, I was wondering if I flip back up to this slide, is there one that you may be able to share with us?
Oh God, there's so many. Let me see. There's so, I mean, truly there's so. Oh. So there's the lady in the red shawl whose face is not visible. Yes, yeah. That's Anjana. Her father was in Shimla, she says, when partition was announced. And they came from a very landed family and they had lots of birds and deer and birds of all kind of species, like 5,000 birds they had.
Oh, wow.
And she said he never could go back because it was announced. And he told the people in his house to let go of the birds and fly in the skies so they don't know where is India and where's Pakistan, right? So that's one story, which is very precious. Actually, they're all very beautiful. I can't even begin to say which one is not. They're really special, each one of them. I won't do justice if I just pick up more, just one, but yeah, since you asked, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So what's happening in this?
This is a very special display, which was, I was called by Salima Hashmi and Muniza Hashmi. They are both daughters of Faiz Ahmad Faiz, the great poet. Yes. And this is at the Faiz Festival in Lahore. And Ali Raza, a friend, was asked to curate my project and he put it in stacks. So each stack is one artist. So one stack was Indian artist, one was Pakistani artist. And when people came, it was a 4-day literary festival. One had to bend 47 times to pick the 47 cards, which became like a ritual, an homage to the year of India's partition. Mm-hmm. And what was beautiful is that it became like a very organic trail. And at any given time, there were almost 75 to 100 people, if not more. Okay. So imagine around 100 people walking around this circle in one, it was just randomly, it was one direction, which was clockwise. Don't ask me why. It became that direction. So imagine the visual of 100 people bending 47 times to pick 47 cards. It was like you're in a temple, you know. Yeah. And this is where I had many people who would just come up to me and say, "Aap India se hain? Ye aapka project hai?" And they would tell me their story. So I started taping those stories. I intend to do something with this. Many stories I have, on both sides of the border, of people who have reacted to my project and which has made them tell me their story. And mind you, these are the people I didn't know, and I would just break down. And so would the people. And this is not just women.
Right.
Men with mustaches and Pathani suits would just break down when they would tell that story.
Yeah.
Now, how do these stories come outside? And that I feel is the job of culture. I don't want to use the word job actually. Job is a very, it's the need for creative people to tell these stories. And therefore that I feel should be given free, vein and freedom to be able to express that, because there's so much on both sides which needs to be expressed. And you and I are both kids of parents who've had partition. And what is it what makes us feel the way we do? I ask myself, I don't know why I get overwhelmed, but I do, Ragini. And with age, I'm getting more and more overwhelmed. If you ask me, what is my connection? But there is a sharing, it's a collective sharing that we have and we feel. And when I showed it at the India Art Fair, this young lady, she must be 35. I said, she came up to me and I said, will you give me your story? And she said, you are taping me, but I will end up crying when you tape me. So I said, it's okay, we'll take another take. She said, no, I cry every time when I tell a story. Do not ask me why, but I do. I said, okay, then we'll take the story with you crying. And that's what happened. She's 35. Yeah. And she said, I have no idea why I cry when I talk about my parents and grandparents and partition. But that's the impact sometimes an event like this has on generations.
On the soul for generations. No, absolutely. In fact, when I was preparing for this, I was telling myself, and even with Shubhra on the first night, we were saying before we came on that I said, Ragini, you can cry, but just don't cry too much. Because
I think I've become very comfortable with shedding tears.
Yeah.
And I feel grief or pain needs to be expressed. And I wish the generations could do it.
Yeah. No,
most haven't. They've clamped up.
Yeah.
Those who have are happier. But any emotion needs to be brought out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if I'm crying in front of 100 people and I said, fine, it's okay. Let them know I'm vulnerable. Vulnerability is good.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, I mean, you touched on this briefly, but if you had to go a little bit deeper into it, what is it about partition that continually draws artists specifically to unpack the event through artistic expression? I mean, we've talked about the necessity of it, but what's the draw for so many artists to express the pain, the resettlement, maybe the new beginning, whatever the feeling is through art?
I can't speak for anyone, Ragini. I can only speak for myself. And even I won't be very clear as to what is making me do it. If you ask me, why am I doing it? I don't have really a very clear answer. I am just going by my heart, and it is constantly showing me the way. But I have never felt the pain I did now, which I do now.
Okay.
As growing up to parents, who it's the same story. The story has not shifted. So what has happened to me? Is it age? Is it vulnerability? Is it the fact that our parents are aging? What has made it? But yes, I must add, I think going to Pakistan shifted me a lot. Something made me, as I said, it made me feel that I'm in the land of my parents. So it's a very subconscious place. Even the birds by afternoon, when it starts getting actually dark, they want to go back home, right? Nobody tells the birds, why are you going home?
Yeah.
So if there's an eclipse in broad daylight at 12 o'clock, if the sky is dark, they go back home.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no logic to that. They just do, they're programmed. Yeah. So I feel, and I could be wrong, I feel the whole idea of the womb, of the home, of comfort, love is very natural to us human beings. Yeah. And probably that's what I'm seeking when I'm doing what I am, Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm very clear because I myself am groping,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's, like we said at the beginning, there is something intangible about this, but at the same time, so necessary. And so I think, what you've said sort of encapsulates that 100%. And And what role do you think art plays in the reconciliation process, which, you know, arguably is still a live process between India and Pakistan? 73 years on, we've not really made peace at large with the way things are, whether at a personal level or a national level. And so what do you think the role of art is in this process?
I think it can play an immense role, It has done in the last few years through music, whether it's Bollywood, calling artists from there, or visual culture, music. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Because the other channels aren't open to us. And they're coming to us in a not very porous way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are interacting with, when you're hearing a musician, you get an energy which is independent of any, voice which has discrimination. So music, culture can play a very important role. In fact, I think that's the only role left to play just now. And
Yeah.
I wish we have more of that, because the other roles, the governments can play later. But this is one role which touches the heart and the soul of the people. It needs no barriers or boundaries. Even when we listen to a music or a musician whose language we don't know, even that kind of shifts us, makes us smile, right? But imagine hearing the common voice from the other side. Imagine what the impact it will have in reconciliation. I mean, you said you were abroad for so many years. You didn't see any other.
Yeah.
So because you were in proximity. So if we don't have physical proximity, let's have cultural proximity. We'll feel better and one,
Yeah.
No, we have phases of cultural proximity. It's a term I just made up, but I think, yeah, it works. Why not?
I guess it's a process of humanizing, right? Because as soon as we realize the other, whoever the other is, in this case, it happens to be across a national border, but as soon as we humanize someone, it's very difficult to hold hate or to hold.
And that's what Gunita, who has done this partition archive,
right? Yeah.
She was home the other day and she said that exactly. She said, when we have unraveled the 10,000 odd stories from both sides of the border, the one thing that comes out is that the hate only happened from people who didn't know the person who was being traumatized, right? People who were friends, which is also the case with our family. Yeah. Every neighbor helped on both sides of the border because there was a relationship at stake. Yeah. And that's the same with life. If we have a connect with the person, we'll be less judgmental of that person. We don't have a connect, we will judge that person harshly and probably unforgivingly. Mm-hmm. So an interaction helps you open your heart.
Understand, comprehend.
Yes. Yeah. And see their context.
Absolutely.
That's an early work, but I wanted to share it because I was collecting feathers. I go for morning walks and I was collecting feathers, and right next to the feather was this egg. And in the egg, I saw red strain, it was almost like the bird has flown away literally a while back. Right. And instinct made me pick up both. As I said, I listened to my instinct. Yeah. And I picked it up. It lay in this little box for a long time till I had a solo of my paintings where I put it and the form found itself. I didn't know what will become of this work. All I knew is I want to try something with it. Yeah. And that's exactly when I say universe finds things for you. Mm-hmm. This artwork found me. The bird found its home through the shadow it formed by being the two objects, that is the egg and the feather.
Beautiful. So before we move on, I think to is this also part of?
Oh, yes. Again, instinctively, Ragini, I have been collecting feathers for the longest time. I didn't know what will become of it. Yeah. And the whole idea of, I said, let me just, when we sleep in olden days, we used to have mosquito nets. So I said, okay, let me just get one. And I made this work. And then I'm doing a series of these works. But it started with this work, and I'm not a political artist, but with this work, I realized, my God, imagine if we had homes which were open to everyone, like a parent say, darwaze khule hote the, koi bhi aa jaye, right? We live with shut doors, we live with locks. Imagine a home which is lit from inside, which is open to anyone to come. And imagine then a series of homes. Imagine such structures all around where you can go get the energy, the light from that home, go to your own home, walk in, walk out without borders, without passports. That's how this work happened, but it's moving into a bigger installation.
Okay.
I don't know where it'll hang because, we artists kind of go a little nutty because for that, I'll need a huge place to put it.
Yeah.
But I'm making them. I'm making a lot of them of various sizes, almost like a city of feathered homes where one can take solace from the outside world, but move from one to the other and take energy and give energy. This is now in the collection of the Kiranatha Museum.
Okay. Okay. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And so before we move on to the rest of your present works and coming into the present, so you said your website's going to be up soon. Is there anywhere else that people are able to view postcards from home?
They can send me an email at manishabaswani@gmail.com and I'll send them the PDF. It's MANISHABASWANI. I'll be happy to send the PDF because it's beautiful stories, even if I say it myself.
Oh, no, absolutely. I didn't even think to ask you if you could email that to me, but can I?
Yeah, I have no problem. I want to share the love I had on both sides of the border, and I want to share them with the world. I feel you can do your little part in making the world a little happier.
Absolutely, absolutely. How exciting. Wonderful. So today, we've talked about these works and where is today taking you with your art?
Yeah, so I mentioned about the pins, so the new series of works is actually around the act of inserting a pin on a virgin space of paper. And imagine if the paper had to say something, it will say, ouch, I'm hurting, right? But when you insert the pin, the paper also breathes. So the irony of the hurt and the breathing and a consistent, incision also brings beauty,
right?
In terms of a form.
Yeah.
So these are works which this is about my backbone. I had a very bad back, and here I am nursing my pain and making this work.
Right.
These are actual acupuncture needles, which were used to ease my pain for my knees. I had many ailments after my partition project. I feel I carried so much that it came out in ways which were not just, it came out in physical ways because I was actually doing the whole project of 47 stories single-handedly. And in hindsight, I think I took on a lot in my body, and it went through a lot of need for repair. So I used to do acupuncture, and you can't see here, but on the top, the needles are burnt because they put herbs on the top so that the herb gets into your body.
Okay. And
there is this little red thread on one of them, which is the mauli, which we put for prayer, that simple acts, simple things which can make us strong, This is, the brain. I mean, when you're going through what you are, the brain goes through its own, negotiation with you. So it's a whole series of works which I did, which pertain to what I went through. And some of them are old works. So basically I'm inserting needles on both sides of the paper, and the paper starts getting a sculptural quality to it.
Wow.
I paint the paper black here. So when you insert the pin from the back, white comes out. So the white is not a paint, it's actually paper pulp coming from the backside onto the surface. Almost like akin to our life, right? When something is going through you, a difficult time, something magical happens while you're going through that. Yeah. I mean, I made a whole series of works on my physical ailments, right? So a born optimist, I must say I am. But that's what's happening with my recent body. This is all happening during COVID time. This is my new body of work. I've been reading Eckhart Tolle for the 3rd time now. I just love Eckhart Tolle. And I felt when I was doing this work, really, I feel that the earth is healing just now. I really feel for the earth. Yeah. The earth is saying, just give me some time, I'll come back to you, full tempo, but just, so this is actually, imagine how many incisions of pins have happened in this paper.
Goodness.
And in the process, the paper is also healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, again, the irony. We've done to earth what we have. Yeah. But the earth is in chaos, but it's healing in the process. So this is what I've done last 2-3 months. This is body of work.
Wonderful. Manisha, thank you so much. This has been a lovely hour. It's been so heartfelt. I've personally really enjoyed listening to the feeling behind the project. You know, one can visually see a painting, but to hear from the artist what the significance of that is to them, I think is what really brings it to life. And you've done that really beautifully for us. And I think your point that culture is the only channel open to us to begin to bridge these gaps that have been created. And it's very important we do that so that they don't grow more than they need to, or any more than they have for that matter, is a very significant one. And through the comments over the last couple of days, we've seen a lot of comments echoing this sentiment, you know, that of dialogue, of culture, of communication, of humanizing, as we said. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for
thank you, Ragini. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It has been a beautiful session with Manisha, and I've really enjoyed listening to her speak about her work and exploring postcards from home. As she said very kindly, if you would like to see this, you can send her an email at manishabaswani@gmail.com, and she'll be happy to share it. And I think we're all very lucky that we are here to be able to receive that from her. And so I thank you for that as well. And please come back tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be speaking with Dr. Radha Khurana Kapuria from the University of Sheffield. And her area of research is the music of Punjab and how the systems of Punjabi music were disrupted and perhaps reconstructed around the time and following partition. So it is going to be a very different session, as every day is. And I'm very excited to get into it with her and listen to some music and learn about our shared musical culture. So thank you so much and good night.
सुबह जैसे आँख खोली थी, आपने सोचा कि चलो चाय वाय का कोई बंदोबस्त करते हैं, देखते हैं। जैसे आँख खोली, इधर भी मुर्दा, इधर भी मुर्दा, और मक्खियाँ ऐसी उनके ऊपर कि जैसे कि लेयर ऑफ मक्खियाँ नहीं होती। जब तक असी जिंदा, तुसी भी जिंदा हो। जब 80 मर गए तो फिर उसकी जिम्मेवारी साड़ी नहीं।